Okay, so you're looking through all the blogs, you're looking all this stuff. Maybe you're new to CI, maybe you're not so new to CI, but you see all these letters everywhere. What do they mean? Well, I'm about to tell you what some of the big ones, the most important ones, mean. Check this out. Okay, so we've all been looking on blogs, on Facebook groups and everything, and somebody's asking a question, and they use these little letters, right? You see PQA, TPR, CI, all these other things, and you go, well, what does that mean? And you maybe not want to ask, or maybe you've seen it and you just can't remember what it is. Well, I'm here to help. So here are some that I'm going to show you. So first of all, CI. You've probably seen this everywhere. And if you didn't already know, CI stands for Comprehensible Input. And Comprehensible Input is a big umbrella of a theory that was written by Dr. Stephen Krashen. And it's only a little part of his theory. And you can go on his website and look at it. It's got lots of different wonderful stuff. But teachers have pulled out this one really big chunk of information about how we learn languages. And it's the Comprehensible Input theory. And so if you're a comprehensible input teacher, that means that you use this theory of how we learn languages in your classroom. And so everything that you choose to do in your classroom is related to this theory of how we learn language, comprehensible input, which basically says that we learn language when we hear language that we understand the meaning of the message, not necessarily exactly how it's put together. So for example, there's this sign in my room that I got from a very famous blogger, and it says, when acquiring another language, first we learn to listen, we learn to read what we've heard, we learn to write what we have read and heard, and then finally we speak because we've heard it, we've read it, and we've written it. Basically, that means in a CI classroom, a CI teacher or CI activities are going to be really focused in on listening to comprehensible language, and it's going to be reading comprehensible language. And that writing and speaking just show us what we have acquired in our brain. And not that they're not important, but we don't learn new language from writing and speaking. We learn it from listening and reading. And so CI stands for Comprehensible Input, and anything it's attached to means that it's based on that theory by Dr. Stephen Krashen. Okay, so that's CI. The second one I'm going to tell you about is TPR. Now, TPR is a pretty older one, and TPR stands for Total Physical Response, and it's based on a book and the theory and method by James Asher, Dr. James Asher. And his whole thing with TPR is having movement. So when you say runs, you actually run. Stand up, sit down, write this, all this kind of thing. And the whole idea is the activity is the teacher is saying the language, is providing the language, and the students are doing the action. They're not repeating, they're actually really quiet. And Dr. James Asher even talks about a silent period of a time where they don't talk, they're just doing. So in my classroom, this looks like in third grade, we talk about walks fast, walks slow, and the students are actually doing this. And it mainly works with action verbs, so walks, sits, laughs, falls down, hugs, runs, things like that. It doesn't really work well with abstract things like loves, wants, stuff like that, but it can. But that's what TPR stands for, Total Physical Response, and that is that activity. Okay, now to piggyback onto that, but not really, is TPRS. Now this one has gotten a lot of big attention. Okay, TPRS is a series of activities. It's developed for a very systematic way that you go through things, and it was created by Blaine Ray. And a lot of times his book is considered the Green Bible. It's a wonderful book because even if you don't use TPRS, meaning that methodology of going straight through those steps, the way he explains how we learn language, it's so wonderful. So TPRS used to stand for Total Physical Response, storytelling. But then it changed because as TPRS developed and Blame Ray developed it and more teachers started using it, it changed because it was no longer based on this TPR from Dr. James Asher. It was on storytelling. So it changed. It is no longer total physical response storytelling. It is teaching proficiency through reading and storytelling. And so there are a certain set of steps that you go through, and I haven't done it as much. I used to be the TPRS teacher every single time, and I've kind of evolved as a teacher into a different way that matches my personality. But then there's some people who just take TPRS and run with it, and they're so good at it. Oh my goodness. Like Somos by Martina Bex is based on a TPRS format. So you establish meaning by translating directly, adding gestures, that kind of thing. You do story asking, so a basic TPRS story where you have a basic skeleton script of like, boy goes to the supermarket, he's looking for this, he doesn't find it, finally he asks somebody. I don't know, that's a really bad one. I remember, it used to be like 3 locations. You had a problem, you had a character had a problem, and then you would go to 3 different locations. And those of you who are TPRS like gurus, feel free to write me in the comments because it's been a while since I've gone through that. But anyways, you establish meaning, you tell the story, and then you read the story. And this is a wonderful, wonderful setup for how we learn languages. You have to establish meaning so it's comprehensible. You tell it in context of a story because people care more about meaning than how you say something. They want to know what you're saying. And then you read, which is another huge, big pillar of that. So that's kind of TPRS. If you want to know more about it, I'll put a link below. But that's TPRS. Okay, the next one I'm going to do is PQA. Now, PQA is also part of TPRS, which it might be another step. Maybe I missed it. If I did, you can write in the comments. So sorry. But PQA is personalized questions and answers, and basically is taking the content, taking the language, and applying to your students, the people learning the language, in a personal way. So, for example, I'm reading a novel, I'm telling a story, I'm reading some kind of something with my class, and it talks about pets. I stop and I ask, Susie, do you have a pet? In the target language, which mine would be Spanish, or yours might be Russian or Chinese or French or whatever. Susie, do you have a pet? And Susie, if she is farther along proficiency, she might answer back me in the language, or she might answer me in English, or I might have to whisper, hey, do you have a pet? And then she can tell me, and then I recast it to the rest of the class. So, Susie, you have a pet? Oh, you do have a pet. Do you have a cat or do you have a dog? And she'll tell me, oh, I have a dog. Oh, you have a dog? Do you have 2 dogs? Do you have 3 dogs? Oh, you have that. What is the name of your dog? What color is your dog? And so then I'm starting to get into these questions and answers, and I start comparing. I might ask Susie, then I ask James, and then I compare. James has a cat, or Susie has a dog. And then I might add myself in. And this is a wonderful way because I think sometimes we get so focused in on that third person of he or she does something. This is a wonderful way to put in that second person and even that first person plural of nosotros, or first person plural into our classes, and that second person of asking questions. And so they're hearing that over and over again. And of course it is tying their experience to the language, because what does a student want to be able to communicate? They want to be able to communicate about themselves and about what they like and what they don't like and what somebody else likes, and compare it. That's very powerful, compelling language. So that's what PQA stands for, personalized questions and answers, and it comes in lots of different formats. Some people just do this in their classroom for a really long time. They do interviews, and it's wonderful, and it's very impactful, and you can write it up and use it as readings. It's great. Or you can just use it like I was discussing. You're in the middle of something and you stop to ask questions. So that's PQA. The last one I'm going to do is SSR or FVR. And these are used interchangeably, but there is a difference in them, but you'll see a lot of people just use them. Basically what SSR is, sustained silent reading. And then you have FVR, which is free voluntary reading. Now this is another thing that is highly, highly supported by Dr. Stephen Krashen's research, and you'll see lots of things about it. Bryce Hedstrom is another blog that gives you lots of things of how to adapt this to a classroom. And I actually have the book from Teachers Pay Teachers, and he has it on his. Mike Pito has the Pleasure Reading in a World Classroom. which is really good about how to set this up. But basically what it means is you have a time in your classroom. I mean, this is how I look at it. You have a time in your classroom where you have provided reading, as much variety as you possibly can, that is comprehensible to your students, and you let them read. And it's a sustained time. You make it as voluntarily in what you're reading, like they get to choose. Now, I've also seen free and voluntary reading someone was saying it can't be done in the classroom because it has to be outside the classroom where they voluntarily read when they could do something else. I don't know exactly. I'm not the perfect person, but I've heard people use SSR or FVR to discuss how they have a reading program in their classroom when students read from a class library. Readers that you can get from like Fluency Matters, or as your students grow in Proficiency, you can start throwing in more authentic materials if you want to. Senior Ruling has those graphic novels now that my kids just eat up. They're so good. So that's what those acronyms mean. If there's an acronym that you've seen that you want to tell us what it means, you can tell us in the comments. Or if you have an acronym you've seen and you don't know what it means, put it in the comments. And don't forget, help me out, hit the like button and subscribe so that I know that these kind of things are helping you, because I want to help you on your journey, show you some things that I've learned in my journey, and let's go forward together. Adios.